Several site visits has been conducted with various stakeholders, and there is this enlistment of a consultant which is being envisaged, and the terms of reference are presently being worked on.
Has the ministry got any budget specific this year for the renovation work? Since you are appointing a consultant now, do you have in head any project that you may envisage in this region? Because despite it is in a high-risk flood region, it's still a national heritage and patronyme national. Donc, quel est le projet que le ministère a en tête?
It's difficult for us to foresee any projects, but of course it will be restoration and rehabilitation. But the first step to any restoration project would be to conduct a survey, and this is presently being done with the terms of reference being worked on. So it's a matter of taking it phase-wise.
Matter of good faith, Honourable Minister. It is mentioned in the same correspondence, that is the second correspondence, and then you never replied to them. Will you please reply to this letter, earmarking your project, your intention to come forward with whatever you just mentioned in the Parliament today? Thank you.
Noted, Mr. Speaker.
Rather than proceeding with projects in isolation, does the Minister agree that it would be wiser for the concerned ministry to put in place a holistic plan for the conservation of the numerous heritage assets in this region?
No answer. Next question. Honourable Ramphel.
B953.
Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne la partie A de la question, comme la Chambre le sait, dans le discours du budget 2021-2022, il a été annoncé qu'un nouveau Bank of Mauritius Bill et Banking Bill serait sous peu introduit en adéquation avec les meilleures pratiques internationales et tenant en compte la pandémie. À cet égard, j'ai été informé que la Banque de Maurice travaille activement sur les deux nouveaux projets de loi. La Banque mène d'ailleurs des consultations avec le FMI sur la rédaction de ces projets de loi. La législation relative à la Banque centrale reviendra en détail sur le mandat de la Banque de Maurice et les pouvoirs spécifiques dont elle dispose pour atteindre ses objectifs, notamment en matière de politique monétaire, de création des conditions favorables au développement économique et de stabilité financière, y compris au niveau macroprudentiel. En outre, la Banque de Maurice est en train de remanier son cadre de politique monétaire avec l'appui du FMI afin de renforcer encore davantage l'efficacité de sa politique monétaire. J'ai été informé que la stratégie de la Banque sera axée sur un certain nombre d'éléments opérationnels et stratégiques clés, tels qu'une cible d'inflation définie et flexible qui ancrera les anticipations d'inflation et permettra une plus grande clarté sur le mécanisme des interventions de change. Les principales caractéristiques du nouveau cadre seront intégrées dans la nouvelle législation. Monsieur le Président, concernant la partie B de la question, alors que les recommandations du FMI sont dûment prises en considération, les autorités restent souveraines et indépendantes dans leur prise de décision. Depuis sa création en mai 2020, je tiens à rappeler que la MIC a grandement contribué à préserver l'emploi et sauvegarder la stabilité financière du pays alors que nous traversions la pire crise de notre histoire. D'ailleurs, je tiens à rapporter les propos de l'administrateur du FMI pour Maurice, qui était sur place pas plus tard que la semaine dernière. Après son entretien avec le Premier ministre, l'administrateur a déclaré que Maurice a réussi à faire face à la Covid-19 et que les décisions prises par le gouvernement mauricien, notamment la création de la MIC, sont justifiables. Ces mesures, a-t-il précisé, ont grandement aidé à préserver l'emploi, en particulier dans le secteur du tourisme. Au sortir de la pandémie, la MIC est maintenant appelée à jouer un rôle prépondérant dans le développement et la modernisation de Maurice et de son économie. La Banque centrale s'est en effet dotée, à travers la création de la MIC, d'un portefeuille d'investissement local qui cadre avec son mandat de promouvoir un développement économique ordonné et équilibré. Je rappelle que la MIC est une société d'investissement générant des bénéfices, ce qui, in fine, renforce encore davantage le capital et l'indépendance de la Banque centrale. L'orientation de la MIC est et reste la création de richesses pour les Mauriciens. Ainsi, la décision de la Banque de Maurice de conserver sa filiale d'investissement sur le plan local est prise dans l'intérêt suprême du pays. Merci.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I can see from paragraph 24 of the IMF report that the government of Mauritius has given the undertaking that by June this year, they were supposed to submit to the IMF for consultation a draft bill of the new BOM Act. May I know from the Honourable Minister whether this has been done?
Monsieur le Président, nous travaillons continuellement sur le draft bill. Il est vrai que ce n'est pas encore finalisé, mais que dans les, je peux le dire, dans les semaines à venir, nous allons faire le nécessaire. Je sais que la Banque de Maurice est en train de travailler continuellement, je le dis, directement avec le FMI. Nous, au niveau de l'autorité, nous allons prendre connaissance des dispositions de cette nouvelle loi quand ce sera rédigé. D'accord? Donc, c'est directement, la Banque de Maurice est en train de faire directement avec le FMI. C'est comme cela qu'on a travaillé dans le passé. La Banque de Maurice ne va pas passer par Maurice pour envoyer au FMI, il va envoyer directement.
My second supplementary is with regards to paragraph 22 of the IMF report, wherein the IMF has recommended that the amendments to the new bill should prohibit any future direct financing to non-banks, for example, to the government, as well as it should also prohibit quasi-financial activities, fiscal activities, like the setting up of the MIC, for example. Now, may I know from the Minister whether these amendments are going to cover those aspects and prevent any future financing from the Bank of Mauritius to government?
Monsieur le Président, je vais répondre directement à la question posée par l'honorable membre. Je tiens, avant de répondre à cette question, à repréciser encore une fois le contexte quand on avait fait ce transfert. Ne vous inquiétez pas, je vais vous donner la réponse. Parce que souvent, j'ai remarqué qu'ici, on met souvent en doute ce que nous avons fait en 2020. Nous pouvons ne pas être d'accord, mais je me rappelle très bien qu'à l'époque, on était tous d'accord de la situation où on était en train de se diriger, de la situation économique catastrophique qui s'annonçait devant nous. Aujourd'hui, j'ai vu, nous entendons très bien certaines recommandations par rapport à ce que nous avons fait en 2020. Je tiens à préciser, Monsieur le Président, si vous me le permettez, je vais vous donner quelques chiffres. Vous savez, je suis un économiste, j'aime bien donner quelques chiffres, et après, je vois l'honorable membre, donnez-moi quelques secondes, ça ne va pas prendre beaucoup de temps. Je vais vous répondre à votre question, je sais très bien ce que vous avez répondu, la réponse va être très très simple. Ça va être un oui ou un non, je vais vous dire oui ou non. Mais premièrement, je voudrais parler de cela. On était avec un PIB de 500 milliards en 2018, 511 milliards en 2019, 448 milliards en 2020. Donc, ce qu'on a perdu, on aurait dû être à genoux, avec presque 22% de taux de chômage, une série de faillites qui allait entraîner encore plus de chômage. Maintenant, on est dans la pente ascendante. Nous sommes en train de reprendre. Nous avons fait 480 milliards en 2021. Plus de 20 milliards en dessous de ce qu'on avait fait en 2019. C'est pour 2022 que nous allons pouvoir dépasser le PIB de 2019. Cela veut dire que les 2 dernières années, 2020-2021, ça a été des années de crise. Parce que pour la première fois depuis 40 ans, nous n'avons pas pu dépasser continuellement le PIB qu'on avait fait l'année auparavant. Donc, nous avons utilisé MIC, nous sommes partis vers des politiques non conventionnelles, mais même l'administrateur du FMI reconnaît que nous avons choisi ces politiques pour pouvoir sortir de la crise. Maintenant, pour répondre à votre question, Monsieur l'honorable membre, bien sûr, nous n'allons plus choisir d'adopter des politiques non conventionnelles parce que nous sommes en train de rebuild notre résilience avec la montée de la croissance économique qui va nous permettre de construire et de consolider notre Resilience Fund pour la prochaine crise. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bien sûr.
You have one more? That would be the last one.
Okay. Now, if the Honourable Minister has said that he's not going in the future to take money from the BOM, but then the IMF report also says that the presence of those 2 deputy governors on the board of the MIC amounts to a conflict of interest, clear conflict of interest. Now, why is the Honourable Minister not taking the appropriate measures to relinquish ownership of the MIC?
Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, nous ici, nous écoutons, nous prenons connaissance des recommandations, mais nous appliquons ce qui nous convient pour le développement économique de Maurice. Nous enlevons, donc vous êtes en train de nous dire d'enlever MIC, de renoncer à MIC. C'est quelque chose que je laisserai le soin à l'honorable membre quand un jour, peut-être à la Saint-Glinglin, quand il sera de nouveau au pouvoir, il pourra à ce moment-là relinquish, il fera une demande au gouverneur. Nous, de ce côté de la Chambre, je laisse la politique monétaire, la politique, le management de la Banque centrale au gouverneur. C'est lui qui a pris cette décision. La Banque de Maurice a pris cette décision de créer le MIC et c'était dans l'intérêt du pays. Ils ont décidé de maintenir, ils maintiennent MIC.
What is happening? You already Minister of Finance? No. So, the question has sufficiently been canvassed. We move to the next question. Honorable Richard Duval.
954.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part A of the question, since 1st June 2022 to 21st July 2022, 14,751 persons were tested positive for COVID-19, out of which 12 deaths were attributed to COVID-19. In reply to part B of the question, concerning additional measures to be taken, the Public Health Unit of my ministry regularly makes situational analysis based on international scenarios and local reports on COVID-19, namely vaccination status of the population, testing capacity, emerging variants, adherence to sanitary measures in force, available treatment, as well as number of cases detected, hospitalization, and deaths. Mr. Speaker, sir, several countries across the world have reduced, if not eliminated, all public and sanitary measures. All these countries or even facing an uprise in the reported number of COVID-19 cases and deaths. However, these countries did not revert back to the previous sanitary precautions. Similarly, in Mauritius, it has been observed that the weekly number of reported positive cases has increased. However, it should be pointed out that hospitalization due to COVID-19 and relative death have not increased. In light of these factors, coupled with a high vaccination status, no additional measures is being envisaged for the time being.
Can the Honourable Minister give a breakdown? How many have been tested with the PCR test and how many with the rapid antigen test?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will table the information in a weekly basis. On a weekly basis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, will you please confirm to the House whether, when you're doing the computation of the figures, are you taking into account both PCR tests and antigen tests?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. These figures that I have just given, they are both for the rapid antigen test and the PCR test.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, can the Honourable Minister inform the House, give further details pertaining to the profile of the patients who passed away during the last 2 months? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. During the last 2 months, so as at 25th July 2022, 14 deaths attributed to COVID-19 has been recorded. All were above 60 years of age and with multiple comorbidities. Here I would like to express my sincere and deepest condolences to the families bereaved. Among the 14 deaths recorded, 7 were not vaccinated, 6 were vaccinated, and 1 case is still under investigation.
Thank you. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House the number of persons tested positive from Agaliga during the last 5 days?
Mr. Speaker, so this one, so far I know the figures that I have, it's around about 25. 25 persons have been tested positive in Agaliga, and all of them, if I'm not mistaken, they are all asymptomatic.
Next question, Danu.
Thank you, Mr. President. B955.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the total road network all over the island is estimated at around 2,400 kilometers, out of which some 1,350 kilometers fall under the purview of the Road Development Authority. These roads are listed under the Road Act and the Motorways and Main Road Amendment Regulations. The remaining roads fall under the jurisdiction of the respective local authorities. Mr. Speaker, sir, the road for which the RDA is responsible are classified in 3 categories, namely the motorway, the A roads, and the B roads. The A roads were initially mainly those linking Port Louis to other parts of the island, such as the A1 road linking Port Louis to Saint-Jean, or the A2 road linking the capital to Central Flac. However, with time and with improvement in the road network management, the A roads are those which have better characteristics than B roads in terms of width, horizontal and vertical geometries. As regards the B roads, they are those which usually link important conurbations such as B1 road linking Eben to Réduit or B2 road linking La Louise to Palma and Bosonge. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to part A of the question, I'm informed that the number of classified roads are as follows. 3 dual carriage classified motorways, M1, M2, M3, over a total length of about 104 kilometers. 21 roads classified as A roads, over a total length of around 242 kilometers, and 174 roads classified as B roads, for a total length of some 1,004 kilometers. As regard to part B of the question, I'm advised that the following main technical criteria are considered prior to classifying a road. Firstly, the characteristic of the existing road and the acceptable horizontal and vertical alignment. Secondly, the volume and type of traffic using such road. And thirdly, the level of upgradability of the existing road to A or B with provision of amenities such as footpath and drains, among others. A and B roads generally should have a minimum width of around 6 meters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Free supplementary. Will the Minister consider conducting a survey in order to identify roads that can be included in the list of classified roads?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have currently with the upgrading, with the amount of work that is being done around the island, the upgrading of several roads, and I should thank the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister for providing us the required fund. L'île Maurice est un sentier. On est en train de revoir the whole network of road. We have a road master plan coming, for which we will plan not for the 10, 20 years ahead, but we are planning for the 100 years to come. So yes, this is a constant process. We will eventually try to see what are the roads under those very specific criteria so as we can upgrade them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you, the Minister, for the good work that he is doing in the constituency and around Mauritius. Can the Minister consider the classification of road Beato, Les Casiennes, and Frédéric Bonnefay?
As the Honourable Member is aware, we are currently upgrading the Beato Avenue, and we have already resurfaced quite some length of the Beato Avenue, from Cupip up to Floréal. This is underway. And where they have the station of the CEB, from there we are trying to enlarge that road because as it is now, it's pretty narrow. But I think once the upgrading is done, it has been widened, it has been resurfaced. Yes, I think given that this can be a bypass, I understand, for those traveling from Lower Plain William toward Cupip. I think, yes, we can eventually consider, but of course under the guidance of my engineers of the ODA.
My last supplementary. We thank the Minister again for all the hard work that he is doing in Cupip. Is speed what's your problem? Can I put my question?
Oh, Lee Kuan Yew, sir.
I think I have the floor. I can put my question. Is speed a criteria for classification of A and B road? And if yes, will the Minister consider upgrading the classification of road B6 from Wotton roundabout to Flack from B road to an A road?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Member will appreciate that there are quite a few technical details that we'll need to consider before replying to this, but I promise to personally look into and eventually with his support to do whatever required so as we can see what can be done so as we can upgrade. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister mentioned that for a road to be considered as classified, horizontal and vertical geometry is important, and for inclusion as well. Can I ask him whether it will be otherwise the road is vested in the local authorities? Can I ask him whether from now on, would it be a policy of government for every new road that is being constructed, that RDA will have an overview of those roads so as to have them included as classified road?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think we need to have, we do respect our local authorities, and we do also give also the chance to work and assumer les responsabilités vis-à-vis le pays. This is purely undermining the competencies at the level of our local authorities. We have already so much on our plate, and we are constructing new roads, like, for instance, I just replied to Honorable Boda, the link road from the center of the island to the west. So these are also being taken care by the ODA. ODA cannot now come and take the road all over the island. Eventually, maybe, if we have the required finance, we can. But this entails much more than just taking the road, upgrading them. I think each component of different authorities need to take their responsibility for a proper road network in the island. Thank you.
B956, please.
Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Mauritius Tourism Promotion Authority that an amount of £1.5 million has been disbursed to the Liverpool Football Club to date. As regards Part A of the question, the contract is valid until the 30th June of 2024, or the expiry of the season 2023-2024, whichever comes later. Mr. Speaker, sir, insofar as the last part of the question is concerned, the House may wish to note that since the contract is valid until the 30th June 2024 or the expiry of season 2023-2024, it is premature at this stage to consider renewing the said contract.
Monsieur le Président, et par rapport à la somme qui a été dépensée, par rapport au contrat qui a été signé entre Liverpool Football Club et la MTPA, peut-on savoir, durant les années passées, ce que le pays a bénéficié par rapport à cette somme qui a été dépensée, par rapport au contrat qui a été signé entre Liverpool Football Club et la MTPA?
Mr. Speaker, sir, honourable member will appreciate that I might not have these information and kindly requesting if question could be put to the substantive minister for more information.
J'ai un certain nombre de questions, encore peut-être 2 questions, mais si l'honorable ministre n'est pas en mesure de répondre, je préfère ne pas les poser.
Bon, allez-y, si vous le souhaitez. Si j'ai les éléments de réponse, bien sûr.
Donc, je vais demander au ministre, par rapport à la fiche publicitaire qui a été visible à Anfield Road lors des matchs de Liverpool Football Club à domicile, effectivement, peut-on savoir combien de fois par match cette affiche a été visible et pendant combien de secondes par match? Vu la somme qui a été dépensée, peut-on savoir si cela nous a permis quand même d'avoir un retour sur l'investissement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, what I can state to the House is that the Liverpool Football Club, with a fan base of 451 million supporters around the world, some 18 million of them of high net worth individual, can be targeted as our main tourist market. We're talking about a large population of supporters when it comes to Liverpool Football Club. And out of those 18 million supporters, 36% are estimated to choose a brand that partner with Liverpool Football Club for their holidays and for investment opportunities. I can go on with a list of other advantages or statistics that can prove that il y a un retour sur l'investissement par rapport à ce contrat qu'on a conclu avec Liverpool Football Club, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir. So the Minister confirmed that 1.5 million of pounds has been spent already, paid. Can I know the terms and schedules of payment regarding this contract up to 2024?
So the first payment, as I mentioned, was 1.5 million pounds upon signature of the contract in July 2020. And the second payment of 2.5 million pounds is due in July 2022. Invoice for the second payment was submitted on the 20th of July 2022 to the Ministry of Finance for consideration and payment to be effected under the National Resilience Fund expected by the end of July 2022. And the third payment, of course, 2.5 million pounds due in July 2023.
Last question.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister has just mentioned the branding Liverpool Football Club. Doesn't he agree that, on the one hand, if he associates Mauritius with Liverpool, that will definitely put off all supporters who do not support Liverpool, and therefore Mauritius should be adopting a neutral stand rather than identify itself to Liverpool?
We might seek, Mr. Speaker, sir, we might seek recommendations from honourable member of other teams that we might conclude agreements. But the statistics show that, and with the performance of the Liverpool Football Club during the past few seasons, there can be no other better team to conclude for our marketing, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Next question, MP Kiran.
B957, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part A of the question, I'm informed that as of 20th July 2022, 11,070 persons had already been administered a second booster dose. Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part B of the question, I wish to reassure the House that the vaccination campaign for the second booster dose is still ongoing at 16 different sites. Persons aged 59 years and above, as well as those at risk and suffering from comorbidities, are recommended to get their booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine so as to further protect them, especially during the winter season. Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part C of the question, I'm informed that as of 21st July 2022, there was a total of 792,386 COVID-19 vaccines in stock, out of which 68,296 doses of Sinopharm vaccines, out of which 8,296 doses will expire in June 2023 and 60,000 doses in August 2023. Second is the 115,250 doses of Johnson & Johnson, out of which 4,630 doses will expire in December 2022, January 2023, and 110,620 doses in August 2023. Third is 298,440 doses of Pfizer, out of which 2,400 doses will expire in August 2022, and 203,580 doses in end of July 2022, and 92,460 doses in September 2022. Fourth, 119,520 doses of Moderna vaccines, out of which 500 doses will expire in August 2022, and 119,020 doses will expire in August 2022. Now, fifth is 190,880 doses of pediatric Pfizer vaccine, out of which 1,930 doses will expire in August, September 2022, and 180,950 doses in September 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to part D of the question, I have already elaborated on the recent increase of COVID-19 positive cases and factors considered for any sanitary measures in my reply to PQB 954.
Nous constatons qu'il y a une recrudescence de cas de la COVID-19 en ce moment. Peut-on savoir de l'honorable ministre quelles sont les mesures que son ministère compte prendre afin d'inciter plus de Mauriciens à se faire administrer la deuxième booster dose?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as per the recommendation of the vaccination committee, as at now, the second booster dose is recommended for those above 60 years and those with comorbidities. So this has been a campaign since the last 3-4 months to recommend those who are eligible for the second dose to get vaccinated. So now we are in a situation where you have many of the above 60 or with comorbidities who have been infected. And now, per the definition of those who are infected, they are eligible for a second booster dose after 4 months or within 6 months. So we have to see this aspect of those who have already been infected recently, and then they have already done the booster dose. So we will need some time for them to get their second booster dose.
Dire si son ministère a procédé à une certaine évaluation du coût des vaccins qui vont être expirés bientôt, ou si son ministère envisage de, je ne sais pas, de remettre à certains pays qui sont en difficulté, comme il l'avait préconisé à un certain moment. Surtout, là, je vois qu'il y a plus de 60 000 vaccins de Sinopharm, entre autres, qu'on n'utilise plus.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So already the ministry has given the donation to other countries. I will just give a brief outline that the government has already donated to Zimbabwe 60,000 doses in November last year, Rwanda 50,000 doses in November, Tanzania 150,000 doses, Uganda 150, and Namibia 150,000 doses. So already this process of donation is ongoing. So we have already, the offer has already been made through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So obviously, once country will accept those vaccines, we are going to proceed for the donation.
In terms of preparedness by the ministry, in light of the recent increase, will the ministry consider to provide the health centers with vaccination facility? I mean, all the health centers, because now it is centralized in hospital, in certain health centers. Will you consider to extend it to in the regions?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Obviously, so because of the demand has gone down now for the last 1 month, so approximately 200 persons are coming up to the vaccination centers for vaccination. That's why we have again centralized the vaccination center. Now, in the light of the coming vaccination committee recommendation, if ever this vaccination will be eligible to other categories of those we can get them their second booster dose, obviously we'll work again upon the vaccination team, whether we should be more focused on having mobile teams going to the different regions where for example, now that the centres communautaires are all open, so if we have the old age association, and from them we can do the vaccination, targeted one, that would be appropriate, especially for the elderly. So the ministry is working this with the Minister of Social Security.
Can the minister inform us with the recent cases in Agaliga, whether there are sufficient vaccines in Agaliga? What is the minister is planning, his ministry, with regard to Agaliga?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. In fact, for Agaliga, the vaccination, we have already conducted the vaccination in September, October last year with the booster dose, all they have. So far, I remember there are some 1,200 workers in Agaliga, plus 3,000 Agalians. So 300 Agalians. So we've already conducted vaccination for around 1,300 Agalians, and the workers, they have already been vaccinated. So, and then we do have the preparation plan, how to do the testing, what do we do in case we got emergencies, how many medical teams are already posted over there for the testing and for the treatment as well.
MP Abbas Mahmoud.
B958.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. All public hospitals have a catering unit which provide meals to patients who are admitted thereat. Catering units operate from 6:30 in the morning to 17:30 hours on a daily basis, and all inpatients are provided with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Meals are prepared based on dietary recommendations from the chief nutritionist. In addition, meals are also provided to officers working after normal working hours and who are entitled same. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that food wastage in public hospitals is mainly due to the following reasons. First, during visiting hours, relatives bring along meals for inpatients, and thus meals which have already been ordered and prepared by the catering unit are not eaten by the patients. Second, it's common that a patient's condition may suddenly deteriorate, requiring the treating doctor to keep the patient fasting for medical reasons, for diagnostic tests, or even surgical procedures. Third, upon improvement of a patient's condition following treatment administration, the treating doctor discharges the patient prior to meal service. Fourth, many times meals prepared for patients are not eaten as sick patients often lose appetite, leading to a considerable amount of leftover foods. Fifth, some patients are often not willing to receive hospital meals at a time of service, despite requests to be provided with same during the preparation of diet sheet by ward managers and charge nurses. Mr. Speaker, sir, reducing food wastage is on the agenda of my ministry, given the associated financial and environmental impacts. A number of measures have been put in place by my ministry to ensure minimal food wastage at the level of all public hospitals. These measures are as follows: a diet sheet comprising the number of patients in a specific ward, their preferences for meal, number of meals required depending on admission and discharge, types of meals depending on health status of patient, and any other dietary requirement is submitted on a daily basis to the catering unit to ensure that the number of meals prepared strictly meet with the requirements of the patients in each ward. All meals are prepared and distributed according to proportion sizes recommended by the chief nutritionist. For example, the portion of chicken or fish per meal for one patient is around 150 grams. All nursing staff at the level of wards are fully aware of the dietary requirements and choices of each patient, and the number of meals served is closely monitored by the nursing staff, who also encourage patients as far as possible to finish their meals. All staff working after normal working hours and who are entitled to meals are required to fill in a meal request form, which is certified by their head of department prior to obtaining their meal. Mr. Speaker, sir, in spite of the above measures put in place, food wastage is around 5 to 10% in public hospitals. To further limit food wastage and improve the quality of the catering service, my ministry is envisaging to serve food packed to patients. Each food pack will comprise a container divided into 4 to 5 compartments for the different foods. The food packs will be conveyed in a heated trolleys from the catering unit of the hospital to the wards, and patients can consume their meals as and when they feel hungry. By implementing this novel measure, my ministry will encourage patients to consume hospital meals, thereby bringing food wastage in public hospitals to a minimum. Thank you.
Can the Honourable Minister state whether normally patients are being asked in the morning if they would opt for meal brought by close one during visiting hours? Is there protocol? Is there something being asked in the morning?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I've already stated it in my reply. So the nursing officers at the level of wards, they are fully aware that the number of meals that has to be prepared for each ward. but there are factors that their patients may be discharged or patients. So there are factors that will not be able to assess it in the morning. But that exercise of the number of meals to be prepared based on the number of admissions that we do have in the morning, this is being a daily monitoring by the ward managers, ward nursing officers.
Thank you. Will the measures that the Honourable Minister will take henceforth cater for the fact that by the time the meal is served at 5 p.m. after visiting hours, up to normal dinner time of most Mauritians, 7 to 8 p.m., the food gets cold and hence not appealing for people to eat? An issue which I have had raised with him in the past. Would that cater for this issue?
Yes, so that's why, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are coming with the packed food. So the packed food will be already packed in the catering unit, and that it will be kept in a in a place where you can keep in heated trolleys. So these food can be, the patient can at his time of convenience have this food. So this will again reduce the wastage of food. So this will be implemented hopefully by end of this year or beginning of this year, and we are envisaging to implement this on a pilot basis. For example, we'll start it for wards, the children ward first, and with the post-maternity ward. We understand that, women who have delivered and how good it would be to have a good packed meal. So this is what we are working for, and hopefully by end of this year, beginning next year, we can start it by these wards first, the children ward and the post-maternity ward, how we call it.
Next, you have one.
Thank you very much, sir. Ask the Minister whether the services to provide packed food will be contracted out, or whether the services will be contracted out or delivered by the delivered in-house.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, says the services will be delivered by the catering unit, but they will require a training first. So the MIH will provide training to the staff working in the catering unit how to do the packing of these food so that this can be distributed to patients, and it will be done by the catering unit itself.
B959, please.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes, I'm informed that there were 7 cases of healthcare personnel found drunk while on duty for the last 3 years. There are 3 cases at G2 Hospital, 1 case at Victoria Hospital, 1 case at Nehru Hospital, and 2 cases at Sir Sivasagar Ramgoolam National Hospital in the north. So at G2 Hospital, 1 ambulance driver was involved in a case of road accident, and the matter was reported to the police. The ambulance driver was sentenced to pay fine, and he was disqualified to drive all types of motor vehicles. The officer has already retired from the service. 1 health records clerk was found drunk on duty, and the case was reported to the senior health records officers. The health records clerk is now regular at work, and there is no adverse report against him. The 3rd case is a doctor who was scheduled to work at Quartier Militaire Area Health Center. He arrived late at his place of work and was reported of smelling of alcohol. The incident was reported to the duty manager, and an inquiry is ongoing in this case. At Victoria Hospital, there is 1 case of an ambulance driver who attended duty under the influence of alcohol. A letter of caution has been issued by the Regional Health Director to the ambulance driver. At Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital, a complaint was received against 1 ambulance driver who was driving under the influence of alcohol. In this context, a board of inquiry was set up at the level of the regional hospital, and it was recommended that the conduct of the ambulance driver be monitored by the supervisor, Operation Support Services, and any shortcomings should be reported to the HR section of Nehru Hospital for appropriate actions. At SSR Hospital, there was one healthcare assistant who was drunk during his night duty, and an inquiry committee has been set up to look into the matter. There was also one general worker who was under the influence of alcohol, and a letter was issued against him. Thank you.
The Minister just mentioned about a recent case of a doctor who worked at Quartier Militaire and who was suspected of being drunk. Can I ask the Honourable Minister reasons as to why he was not asked to take time off until a proper inquiry has been conducted and appropriate measures be taken in the interest of safety of himself and the public, but rather he has been transferred to G2 Hospital to work in a high-risk department such as surgery?
Mr. Speaker, sir, so there is an inquiry on this patient. So I'm not in a position at this time of inquiry to provide further information about this doctor who has been found, drunk or smell of alcohol at one place of work. So we'll wait for the report. At the same time, so whether this is in order to take an action before a report will come up, that is the human resource section has to give those elements whether this can be done or not can be done. But at this time, I don't have this information, and I'm not in a position to comment on this where an inquiry is ongoing.
Thank you. Alcoholism is a serious condition that affects many professionals in all walks of life. Thus, his ministry has a psycho-counseling and support unit for its medical and paramedical employees, and if not, whether he will consider setting one up.
Mr. Speaker, sir, well, I have to reply to this question. This will apply to all public officers, even to officers working in the private sector, whether somebody who is, having, a problem with alcohol, we call it harmful drinking. How do we first assess this harmful drinking, and how we should implement some, any recommendation or any action to be taken on this? For the time being, it's very difficult for me to comment on this issue.
The minister himself being a doctor, can I ask him, during on-call hours, can the minister enlighten us as to who, during emergency hours, on-call between 4 p.m. till the next morning 9 a.m., who can prevent a drunken doctor from performing surgery? Because many a times, the whistleblower finds himself at the receiving end of some punitive action by people around, and there has been cases before. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable member, being a surgeon himself, so he should at least provide me with some details of those drunken surgeons who do take the risk of doing an operation, and that he should have, give me this information. Obviously, as a psychiatrist, I will be able to look after that. So
Next question.
B960.
Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, as per the last National Nutrition Survey carried out in 2012, 9.9% of children aged between 5 to 11 years, were found to be obese. With regard to children aged 13 to 17 years, the global school-based survey carried out in 2017 in collaboration with Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has revealed that 9.1% of adolescents were obese and another 15.7% were overweight. I wish to inform the House that my ministry is currently carrying out the National Nutrition Survey 2022 from 23rd July to 10th August 2022. So the main objective of this survey is to study food consumption patterns and assess the nutritional status of the population with a view to address diet and nutrition-related health problems and non-communicable diseases in the country. Children 5 to 11 years old will be included in this survey. With regard to part A of the question, information is available for type 1 diabetes children who are being treated in our government hospitals, and the number of new cases of type 1 diabetes diagnosed among children and adolescents for the period 2014 till June 2022 is 121. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to part B of the question, I wish to inform the House that saturated fat in specific foods is regulated in the current Food Regulation 1999. It is worth to note that the sale of food on premises of educational institutions, Regulations 2009, Schedule Regulation 3, already make provision for food which may be sold on the institution campus which is in force as from 2010. I'm sorry. Furthermore, I wish to highlight that in the forthcoming food regulations under the Food Act, which are under preparation, trans fatty acids will also be regulated at not more than 1% on a fat weight basis. Salt will also be regulated in the new food regulation. Excuse me. Moreover, a nutrient profile model in Mauritius is underway. So this model will be used as a tool for banning of advertising of high-fat, salt, and sugar food or drink products directed towards children. The nutrient profile is a scientific method for categorizing food and beverage items according to their nutritional composition. It provides a method of differentiating between foods and non-alcoholic beverages that are admissible in a healthy diet from those that are unhealthy, notably those foods that may contribute to consumption of excess energy, saturated fats, trans fats, sugars, and salt. The World Health Organization has adopted nutrient profiling as a useful tool to define foods whose marketing should be restricted as part of the implementation of the recommendations endorsed by the World Health Assembly on the marketing of foods to children. A regional nutrient profile model has already been developed for the African countries by WHO. Technical assistance of the World Health Organization has been enlisted for the Mauritius nutrient profile model that is underway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Merci. Suite à la réponse de l'honorable ministre, on peut conclure que le taux d'enfants en situation de surpoids et d'obésité est alarmant. Et c'est un fait que de manger sain et équilibré coûte plus cher, et de surcroît, le contexte actuel de la diminution du pouvoir d'achat accentue le problème de malbouffe. Quelle est donc la stratégie de son ministère pour encourager l'alimentation saine et aussi pour décourager les mauvaises habitudes alimentaires, particulièrement chez les enfants?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. We are all concerned with obesity, with the pattern and food. That's why in my reply, I've stated what we are doing, that is the survey on the nutrition survey. This is very important, National Nutrition Survey. And also in the Food Act, that will be coming into force, and how we can limit, especially foods that I've mentioned, fats with trans fats and all that, how to limit it, especially for children. So all those will be coming soon, and also with the Food Standard Agency, where all this information will be given to anybody, whichever food you wish to have, you can always get the information there. So also this nutrient profile model for Mauritius, it's very important to have this so that we can know what is the nutrient profile for any individual. So all these are actions already taken. Now, what I will probably request all members of this House, how do we promote healthy eating and healthy habits? So we all have to be role model in promoting such activities. The Prime Minister is doing it through regularly participating. Yes, the Prime Minister is doing it, I will maintain, for regularly participating in physical activities, which is very important so that we can, at the same time, healthy eating with a healthy lifestyle, promotion of activities. I will also welcome you all. We all participate so that we can also send the right signals, the right information to the population, because only by having regulations, information, but not acting as role model, we will keep on having the percentage of obesity, especially in the young generation. It will keep on rising.
Permettez-moi d'abord faire une suggestion et puis je vais poser ma deuxième question supplémentaire. J'aimerais suggérer à l'honorable ministre que les produits emballés qui sont riches en sucre, sel et gras saturés soient munis d'étiquettes de mise en garde pour aider les consommateurs à réaliser le choix alimentaire plus conscient. Ça, c'est une suggestion. Et ma deuxième question est de demander à l'honorable ministre s'il y a eu une étude pour connaître le fardeau économique sur le système de santé relatif au coût des maladies associées aux habitudes alimentaires malsaines.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you very much. This is a very valid suggestion, especially to have in the, in all the food packets that we have, to have already showcase, to highlight, especially the amount of sugars or salt in there. So this is, yes, this will be coming in the food regulations that we will be coming up soon, because the consultant's still working on that. And concerning the second part of your question,
une étude sur le fardeau économique sur le système de santé relatif au coût des maladies associées aux habitudes alimentaires malsaines.
So, Mr. Speaker, sir, so we will be soon receiving the NCD, the Non-Communicable Disease Survey. So we'll see what is the report in that NCD survey, because this NCD survey has been done recently, and the report is expected in the coming days or probably by next week. So based on this NCD surveys, and then with this nutrition survey, we can plan, we can see what is the different strategies that we have to adopt, especially of what you are mentioning. You're perfectly right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In his reply, the Honourable Minister mentioned about healthy lifestyle, and he even mentioned about the physical activities. For a fact, we know that the Minister of Sports is laying much emphasis on what is called physical activities, but can he inform the House whether his ministry is coming forward with maybe some kind of an action plan, especially for children, in order to promote physical activities? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So let me first congratulate the Minister of Sports. That's through the Mauritius Sports Council, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. We've been working together, especially to foster this culture of community sports and physical activity, and especially for, for promoting sports, especially for everybody, even for patients. Recently, Active Mauritius have come up with a new design, that is prescription of a physical activity for patients suffering from NCD diseases. So this has recently been launched, I think it's 6 months, again on a pilot basis, to see how physical activity can promote in the well-being, especially instead of depending only on medication when it concerns for non-communicable diseases. So all these sensitization program concerning even the policy at the policy level, so it's been worked out together with the Mauritius Sports Council, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Education.
Next question.
B961.
So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part A of the question, I wish to point out that the information pertaining to the stock of the and expiry dates of COVID-19 vaccines has already been addressed in PQB 957. Now, in regard to part B of the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that in accordance with the commitment agreement signed with the COVAX facility, there is an outstanding balance of 406,400 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. A request was made in March 2022 for cancellation of the outstanding balance, and various proposals were submitted by the COVAX facility for consideration. First, purchase of all outstanding doses, which would amount to some USD 3,454,400 USD. Second, substitute out the products that we are to receive for different available products. And third, terminate the commitment agreement in return for payment of an exit price. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, following perusal of the above proposals, our mission in Geneva was requested to liaise with the COVAX facility to consider providing us with other vaccines or other pharmaceutical products in lieu of the COVID-19 vaccines. However, on 7th July 2022, COVAX facility has now informed that option 2, that is substitution of products, would no longer be applicable. The other two proposals are being considered by the Vaccination Coordination Committee in consultation with the State Law Office as to the way forward.
Honourable Minister, with regards to the expired vaccine, which will be expired in August, July and August, we have more than 400,000 doses which will be expired. Can we know the cost of these vaccines, especially if you can get the cost of Pfizer vaccines?
Mr. Speaker, sir, for the other vaccines, if I will just go back to what has been said, so the Moderna vaccines was a donation from the, just give me, yes. So this was, the Moderna vaccine was donated by the French Ministry of Health. There are the Pfizer vaccine also donated by the US government, that is the pediatric Pfizer vaccine, and it's only the Pfizer vaccine that we have. We have purchased these vaccines. So I don't have the information for the cost price, but I'm going to table this information. But as for those vaccines that we have, we are now in stock, so I have to compile the figures. I will table that information.
Honourable Minister, thank you. Is it true that the COVAX facilities inform the Ministry, even if we don't take delivery of the 406,000 doses, we will have to bear the costs?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've already said that there were 3 proposals made by the COVAX facility. So one is to purchase out the outstanding doses, and the other one to terminate the commitment agreement in return for a payment of an exit price of USD 812,800. So these are the 2 that we are going to take a decision, which one we are going to take, which one we will take, and then we'll go ahead. So it's not a question of that we don't have any agreement with COVAX facility, and our mission in Geneva is working on that to see what, if ever, we can have another option. Yeah.
Honourable Minister, despite we have 300,000 doses of Pfizer, why we restrict the age limit to 40 years plus when we have such stocks of Pfizer vaccines?
Yeah. So we are waiting for the recommendation of the vaccination committee. Most likely we will be having the vaccination committee, because the vaccination committee is also getting the information from WHO, from other countries, how they are managing, what are the recommendations for a fourth dose, especially in a context where now we've got many people being already exposed to the to COVID-19 or to the variant. So let's get with the recommendation of the vaccination committee, and then surely the ministry will abide accordingly.
B962, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me at the outset point out that Section 114 of the Workers' Rights Act, which deals with violence at work, provides for, amongst others, that no person shall harass a worker sexually or otherwise in the course of or as a result of his work. And under the same section, that is 114, harassment is defined as including any unwarranted conduct towards worker, whether verbal, non-verbal, visual, psychological, or physical, based on, amongst others, age, sex, and gender, which occurs in circumstances where a reasonable person would consider the conduct as harassment of a worker. Furthermore, it is also provided that any worker, any person who is convicted under this section is liable to a fine not exceeding 100,000 rupees and to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that representations have been received at my ministry as follows. On the 1st of April 2022, one secretary of Mrs. HT registered a case of sexual harassment at the QPIP Labour Office against Mr. DN, Human Resource and Administrative Manager of the Group of Casinos falling under the State Investment Corporation Limited, including the Casino de Maurice. A full statement was recorded from her on the same day for investigation. On the 7th of April 2022, the Secretary informed the Labour Office over the phone that she had also reported her complaint of harassment to the police on 5th of April 2022. She was accordingly requested to call at QPIP Labour Office on the 8th of April 2022 to confirm her stand in writing. As she did not attend the Labour Office on the 8th of April 2022, she was convened for 20th of April 2022 by way of a registered letter. On that date, she attended the QPIP Labour Office and gave a statement confirming that she had also registered a complaint of sexual harassment on the 5th of April 2022 at QPIP Police Station. She further stated that Mr. DN was arrested on the 7th of April this year and was released on bail on the same day. In the statement given to the QPIP Labour Office on the 20th of April, she also informed that the police recorded a statement from her and from her witness on 14th of April. She further indicated that Mr. DN has been suspended from work with effect from the 16th of April this year. In view of the fact that the complainant had also referred the case to the police on her own free will, the Labour Office of QPIP wrote to the police on 3 occasions, that is on the 27th of April, 17th of May, and 22nd of June to inquire into the status of the case. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am further informed that on the 4th of April 2022, 2 cleaners, namely Mrs. WB and Mrs. PB of Casino de Maurice, called at QPIP Labour Office to register complaints of sexual harassment against Mr. Dien. They, however, informed the Labour Office in a statement recorded on the same day that they had already retained the services of counsel to proceed further with their case. They accordingly opted to withdraw their complaint lodged before the QPIP Labour Office. Mr. Speaker, sir, regarding the case of Mrs. H.T., an inquiry carried out on the 9th of May this year by the officers of QPIP Labour Office at the Casino de Maurice revealed that Mr. Dien has been suspended from work pending the completion of an internal inquiry being carried out by an independent lawyer appointed by the SIC. I am informed that as to date, Mr. Dien is still suspended from work. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 1st of July 2022, officers of my ministry called at QP police station where they were informed that the above 3 employees had registered cases of sexual harassment against Mr. Dien, and statements from the plaintiffs were recorded by the police. They were also informed that Mr. Dien was consequently arrested on the 7th of April this year and released on bail on the same day. The officers of my ministry were further informed that the inquiry in respect of the 3 cases has been completed and the matter would be referred to the Director of Public Prosecution for advice. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 1st of July 2022 itself, the 3 employees called at the QPIP Labour Office and in a written statement informed that they would await the DPP's stand on this matter and the intervention of the Labour Office would be sought should the need arise. On the 14th of July 2022, officers of my ministry contacted the QPIP police station again and were informed that the 3 cases have already been referred to the DPP on the 6th of July 2022 for advice. Mr. Speaker, sir, regarding whether the complainants have made any representation to my ministry to the effect that they are subjected to undue pressure, including insulting comments and foul language, I am informed of the following. In a letter dated 9th of June 2022, received at my ministry on Friday, 10th of June, and co-signed by the 2 cleaners, complaints were made to the effect that 1, Mr. VB, recently promoted in the maintenance department, was continuously harassing them, and the level of harassment increased after they had lodged the criminal case against Mr. Dien at QP police station on the 5th of April. And in the same letter, one of the 2 cleaners complained that she got a punitive transfer from Casino de Maurice, QPIP, to Le Grand Casino du Domaine Paille, while the other cleaner stated that new working hours from 9 to 17 were being imposed on her as from June 2022. And this was causing hardship to her, and as she had to take bus to travel back home in the evening. Previously, she was working, her working hours were from 7 a.m. to 1500 hours. Mr. Speaker, sir, on Monday, 13th of June 2022, the new cases reported by both employees were raised with the management of SIC Limited, and an appointment was confirmed with the latter on the 17th of June 2022 to inquire into the matter. On the 17th of June 2022, in the course of a meeting my officers had with the management of Sugar Investment Corporation Limited, my officers were informed that remedial action has been taken in both cases, that is, in the case of Mr. WB, who was then posted back to Casino de Maurice at QPIP, and the working hours of Mrs. PB, was reverted back as it were previously. Furthermore, a commitment was taken by the management to change the reporting line of both employees. As a follow-up to the commitment taken by the management of the SIC, my ministry contacted both employees on the 30th of June 2022, and both confirmed that necessary remedial actions have been taken. In addition, it has also been confirmed that both cleaners are no longer reporting to Mr. VB since 1st of July. My ministry is closely monitoring the situation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also informed that since then, my ministry has received no other complaint from either Mrs. HT or Mrs. WB or Mrs. PB of the Casino de Maurice as regard to undue pressure, insulting comments, and foul language. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me reassure the House and the honourable member that my ministry is fully committed to providing all the necessary support to the alleged victims of harassment and will not condone in any manner whatsoever such wrongful act and doing towards any of the workers of Casino de Maurice.
Monsieur le Président, d'après les informations qui me sont parvenues, ce n'est pas la première fois que le dénommé DN se retrouve au centre d'un scandale de la sorte impliquant des employés du casino. De ce fait, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire si, concernant ces dames qui ont subi des agressions sexuelles, verbales, par la suite par certains employés proches de DN, est-ce que ces personnes, ces dames ont reçu ou reçoivent un soutien psychologique de façon à les permettre de continuer à exercer leur travail dans des conditions plus ou moins sereines?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I've just mentioned it in my reply that my officers are monitoring the situation and are in constant communication with the management to ensure that the workers are being properly treated.
Afin de protéger l'ensemble des employés féminins du Casino de Maurice et aussi pour mettre fin à toutes les formes de pression et d'agression verbale, ne serait-il pas plus sage que le Casino de Maurice prenne les mesures qui s'imposent, c'est-à-dire mettre fin au contrat de DN?
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, sir, I cannot speak on behalf of the management of SIC. This is a decision which they will have to take.
The table has been advised that PQ B972, B985, B981, B965, B991, B969, B973, B984 have been withdrawn. Time is over by 3 minutes.
Motion.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
Question is seconded. The question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it.
Statement by Ministers, none.
Honourable members, I name the Honourable Shakil Mohammed under Standing Order 48 for disregarding the authority of the Chair and for persistently and willfully obstructing the business of the Assembly by abusing its rules.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in view of your decision to name the Honourable Shakil Mohammed, I beg under Standing Order 17.3 to take the time of the House for urgent business.
The question is that the Honourable Prime Minister be allowed under Standing Order 17.3 take the time of the House for urgent business. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, having obtained your permission, I beg to move under Standing Order 29.1 to present a motion without notice.
Seconded. The question is that the Honourable Prime Minister be allowed under Standing Order 29.1 to move a motion without notice. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. Ayes have it.
Speaker, sir, in view of your decision to name the Honourable Shakil Mohammed, I beg to move that the Honourable Shakil Mohammed be suspended from the service of the Assembly for today's sitting and the next 5 sittings unless apologies are tendered to the House.
Seconded.
Seconded.
The question is that the Honourable Shakil Mohammed be suspended from the service of the Assembly for today's sitting and the next 5 sittings unless apologies are tendered to the House. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it. Honourable members, I name the Honourable Dr. Mahan Ganga Prasad under Standing Order 48 for disregarding the authority of the Chair and for persistently and willfully obstructing the business of the Assembly by abusing its rules.
Speaker, sir, in view of your decision to name the Honourable Dr. Mahan Ganga Prasad, I beg under Standing Order 17.3 to take the time of the House for urgent business.
Question is that the Honourable Prime Minister be allowed under Standing Order 17.3 to take the time of the House for urgent business. Those in favour say aye, those against say no.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, having obtained your permission, I beg to move under Standing Order 29.1 to present a motion without notice.
Seconded.
The question is that the Honourable Prime Minister be allowed under Standing Order 29.1 to move a motion without notice. Those in favour say aye, those against say no.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in view of your decision to name the Honourable Dr. Mahan Ganga Prasad, I beg to move that the Honourable Dr. Mahan Ganga Prasad be suspended from the service of the Assembly for today's sitting and the next 4 sittings unless apologies are tendered to the House.
Seconded. The question is that the Honourable Dr. Mahan Ganga Prasad be suspended from the service of the Assembly for today's sitting and the next 4 sittings unless apologies are tendered to the House. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. Ayes have it. Honourable members, I name the Honourable Patrick Gervais Asivaden under Standing Order 48 for disregarding the authority of the Chair and for persistently and willfully obstructing the business of the House of the Assembly by abusing its rules.
Speaker, sir, in view of your decision to name the Honourable Patrick Gervais Asiavaden, I beg under Standing Order 17.3 to take the time of the House for urgent business.
Seconded.
The question is that the Honourable Prime Minister be allowed under Standing Order 17.3 to take the time of the House for urgent business. Those in favour say aye, those against say no.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, having obtained your permission, I beg to move under Standing Order 29.1 to present a motion without notice.
Seconded.
The question is that the Honourable Prime Minister be allowed as in the Standing Order 79.1 to move a motion without notice. Those in favour say aye, those against say no.
Aye. Mr. Speaker, sir, in view of your decision to name the Honourable Patrick Gervais Asiavaden, I beg to move that the Honourable Patrick Gervais Asiavaden be suspended from the service of the Assembly for today's sitting and the next 4 sittings unless apologies are tendered to the House.
Seconded.
The question is that the Honourable Patrick Gervais Asiavaden be suspended from the service of the Assembly for today's sitting and the next 4 sittings unless apologies are tendered to the House. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Public Bill, first reading.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that the Finance Bill 2022, number 14 of 2022 be read the first time.
Seconded.
Public Bill, second reading.
Public Bill. Next speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the debate on this important bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, at the very outset, let me congratulate the Honorable Prime Minister for bringing this bill to the House and for the commendable work and effort that he is putting in to improve the legal framework in our island and our national security. The main object of this bill is to consolidate and strengthen the law with regard to the admission and stay of non-citizens in Mauritius. The Immigration Act 1970 has served its time after going through multiple amendments to cater for the ever-changing immigration scene. And it has now become necessary to enact a more simplified and efficient immigration legislation. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a country, we welcome the benefits that migrants bring to our industries, educational institutions, and communities. We know that most migrants are here lawfully and benefit our country, but some are not. They enter the country illegally, overstay their permission to be here, work illegally, undercutting the resident labor market, contribute to overcrowded housing, and damage social cohesion. It is true that the bad apple immigration story often drown out the positive ones. The challenge for both government and parliament is to implement policies which strike the right balance, keeping the door open to those who have something to contribute while maintaining a firm response against those who abuse our hospitality. Immigration is an issue of significant concern to the public. This government remains committed to reducing net migration. We have tightened the immigration routes where abuse was rife, strengthened the system of granting student permission to enter or stay in Mauritius, reformed the investment route, and so on. These reforms are not just reducing volumes. Rather, they have changed the character of migration to Mauritius. This bill will not undermine those important achievements. It will support them. The bill does not make Mauritius a less attractive destination for legal immigrants. Instead, it is about stopping abusers and making illegal immigrants easier to remove by dealing firmly with those who harm our country. It allows us to continue to welcome those who will benefit. Mr. Speaker, sir, with the economic expansion of Mauritius and its pursuit to become a high-income economy, the Mauritian government is promoting openness to foreign investors, talents, know-how, and retirees. Foreign nationals may opt to invest, work, live, or retire in Mauritius through various avenues, namely the occupation permit, the residence permit, the young professional occupation permit, or the permanent residence permit. My address to the House will be threefold, Mr. Speaker, sir, namely, safeguard against marriage of convenience, consolidating the legal framework, and the importance of the bill for the economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to refer to a case of the Supreme Court, Singh v. versus Registrar of Civil Status 2017 SCG 135, which is a vivid example of a sham marriage. The Supreme Court stated the following, I quote, "I am satisfied that all the features highlighted above cumulatively tend to show that the application was dubious, and the applicant was trying to get married by any means to a Mauritian citizen in order to obtain the status of resident of Mauritius pursuant to Section 51C of the Immigration Act. The decision of the respondent has not been shown, in the light of the evidence on record, to be illegal, unreasonable, or unfair. Our law does not particularly deal with sham marriage. but instead lays down the condition for a non-citizen to marry a citizen of Mauritius in the relevant provision of Part 4 of Civil Status Act, requiring strict compliance. With these conditions, since a non-citizen automatically acquires the status of resident of Mauritius by virtue of being a spouse of the citizen of Mauritius, the Civil Status Act accordingly provides for the publication of the proposed civil marriage by a non-citizen. Once published, any person who has any ground to object to the celebration may in turn lodge a notice of objection of the proposed marriage with the Registrar of Civil Status. It is at this stage that the authorities can intervene to prevent a marriage of convenience. The present legislation, as compared to the Immigration Act 1970, makes new provision to prevent situation where a non-citizen marries a citizen for the sole purpose of obtaining a residence permit to stay in Mauritius. A non-citizen spouse will not outright be eligible for a residence permit. The marriage between the non-citizen and the citizen will have to be a civil marriage, and the non-citizen spouse will, in lieu, obtain a temporary residence permit to stay in Mauritius for a period of 2 years. And after that period, the non-citizen spouse will be eligible to apply for a residence permit. The Immigration Department will be empowered to investigate into whether the marriage between a non-citizen and a citizen is a marriage of convenience, and if it is established to the satisfaction of the Immigration Department that the marriage is a marriage of convenience, the non-citizen will obtain a residence permit. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill makes provision for the stringent conditions to be adhered to where the marriage between a non-citizen and a citizen is celebrated outside Mauritius for the issuing of temporary residence permit. Furthermore, to enable other relevant authorities to conduct appropriate checks on non-citizens, the Civil Status Act is being amended to provide that a marriage between a non-citizen and a citizen will now be celebrated in Mauritius after 30 days of the publication of the marriage, instead of the current 10 days. In addition, the Mauritian Citizenship Act is being amended to provide that henceforth, when a non-citizen is married to a citizen, intends to be registered as a citizen of Mauritius, he will, 4 years after having been issued with a residence permit, be eligible to make an application to be registered as a citizen of Mauritius. These novel additions, Mr. Speaker, sir, will bolster our existing legal framework and ensure that convenience marriages are deterred by increasing the timeline in the different stages explained above. Mr. Speaker, sir, recently we witnessed lots of misinformation surrounding the lawful removal of Mr. Peter Juricek, a Slovakian national from the Mauritian territory by Slovakian authorities on Tuesday, 26 April 2022. At the time of his lawful removal from the Mauritian territory on Tuesday, 26, Peter Juricek was the object of an Interpol Red Notice 1. He was a fugitive wanted for prosecution and was, in terms of the Red Notice, reported armed and dangerous. Mr. Speaker, sir, to deal with such situation, even better, other consequential amendments have been rendered necessary to the Deportation Act, the Economic Development Board Act, the Non-Citizen Employment Restriction Act, the Non-Citizen Property Restriction Act, and the Passport Act, so as to align these enactments and the new legislation. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to briefly address comments made in press by an opposition MP in regard to consequential amendment being brought to Mauritius Citizenship Act, more precising to Section 11. I am not a lawyer, Mr. Speaker, sir, but a simple reading of the existing Section 11 clearly shows that provision to deprive a person who has acquired citizenship by registration or naturalization under specific circumstances or part of the Act. The Member of Parliament, as usual, portrayed this amendment in dramatic fashion, just to mislead the population in believing that the amendment is being done with ulterior motives. And all this for political mileage. Mr. Speaker, sir, the new subsection being already contains its safeguards, inasmuch as a minister can only make use of it if he has reliable information and is satisfied that it is in the interest of the defense, public safety, or public order. Mr. Speaker, sir, to reassure the House and the population, let me make a parallel between the powers of the DPP. The DPP is empowered to discontinue proceedings at any point in time. There is no legal obligation on the DPP to give reason when discontinuing proceedings, and it is within his discretion whether to do so or not. Case Mohit V versus the Director of Public Prosecution 2007, SCG 97. However, the decision of the DPP is reviewable. Mr. Speaker, sir, the consequential amendment will facilitate the function of enforcement authorities in ensuring that people on our island are here legally, and if not, necessary action can be taken swiftly to deal with illegal immigrants or criminals. The economic impact of migration is often driven by ill-informed perceptions, which in turn can lead to public antagonism towards immigrants, commonly known as expats. These negative views risk jeopardizing efforts to adapt migration policies to the new economic and demographic challenges facing a small island state like Mauritius, where human capital plays a pivotal role in its existence. Like many nations, migration is a feature of social and economic life of Mauritius, but the profile of migrant population varies considerably. In part, this is because of the variety of sources of migration, including demographic, geographic, and economic. Migrant workers to Mauritius make important contribution to the labor market in both high and low skilled occupations. Over the past 10 years, immigrants represent 17% of the increase in the workforce of the country. The bulk of workforce is employed in textile, construction, fish processing, and retail sectors. In all these areas, immigrants are filling labor needs by taking up jobs regarded by domestic workers as unattractive or lacking career prospects. Migrants contribute more in taxes and social contribution than they receive in individual benefits. The impact is highest in the middle management and senior positions, where immigrants provide an estimated net benefit of about 1% of the GDP to the public purse. Employment is the single most important determinant of migrants' net fiscal contribution, particularly in countries with generous welfare state. Most immigrants, after all, do not come for social benefit, but to find work and to improve their life and those of their families. The effect of migration is twofold. First, migration has a demographic impact, not only by increasing the size of the population, but also by changing the age pyramid of Mauritius. Second, migrants arrive with skill and abilities, and so supplement the stock of human capital of the island. Mauritius has been rather astute in its immigration policy and employment law, one that has created a fine balance between boosting local businesses and also attracting foreign talents. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill will enhance the immigration scene by providing the right legal framework and standard required to face the challenge laying ahead. Let me end by saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this government is continuing with its vision to upgrade the lifestyle and protection of its citizens. This bill is another step in the right direction, and is evidence of the visionary approach of the Honorable Prime Minister to ensure that the development of Mauritius is being done in line with the international standards. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
D'abord, je déplore le fait qu'un tel projet de loi n'ait pas été circulé suffisamment avant la première lecture pour permettre aux Mauriciens, en général, de connaître les motivations du gouvernement. Un tel projet de loi suscite des interrogations et de la méfiance, d'autant plus que des pouvoirs accrus sont prévus, sont octroyés au Premier ministre. Quels sont les objectifs de ce projet de loi? L'objet de ce projet de loi serait de prévenir les mariages de convenance entre a citizen and a non-citizen. Et comment prévenir de tels mariages? Ce projet de loi prévoit d'octroyer un permis de résidence 2 ans après un mariage pour le citoyen étranger ou la citoyenne étrangère, et des pouvoirs sont délégués au chef de l'immigration. Ce projet de loi prévoit également d'octroyer des pouvoirs discrétionnaires au Premier ministre pour déchoir la nationalité mauricienne à une personne sans devoir en donner les raisons et sans aucun recours d'appel à cette personne. En effet, différentes dispositions de ce projet de loi prêtent à interrogation, à savoir le Consequential Amendment au paragraphe 39 qui propose d'amender le Mauritius Citizenship Act, et se lit comme suit. The minister may, in his absolute discretion and without giving any reason, deprive any person of his citizenship of Mauritius if he has reliable information and is satisfied that it is in the interest of defense, public safety or public order. Cette section est contraire à l'article 15 de la Convention des Nations Unies sur les droits humains. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality. La section est également contraire à l'article 7 de the African Charter on Human and People's Rights qui dit ceci. Every individual shall have the right to have his cause heard. This comprises the right to an appeal to competent national organs against acts of violating his fundamental rights. Effectivement, il n'y a aucun recours d'appel à cette décision arbitraire du Premier ministre. Cette section est rétrograde et dangereuse et doit être amendée. Autre point, cette loi, le projet de loi, fait provision de la possibilité de délégation de pouvoir conférée par le Premier ministre au directeur de l'immigration. The minister may, for the purposes of this act, delegate his powers to the supervising officer of the ministry and to the Director General of Immigration. Mais delegate voudrait dire qu'il n'est pas obligé de déléguer. It is not mandatory. Tous les pouvoirs seront conférés au Premier ministre. Il y aura sans nul doute des cas where discretionary powers may be used, and this may leave the doors open to tyranny or abusive use of power by the Prime Minister. Cette loi, encore une fois, je le dis, est dangereuse et arbitraire. Le MMM s'est longtemps battu pour que le conjoint étranger ayant épousé une Mauricienne puisse rester à Maurice. Cela pour rétablir les droits des Mauriciennes ayant épousé un étranger. On se souviendra qu'avant 1983, lorsqu'un Mauricien épouse une étrangère, cette dernière a automatiquement le statut de résidente permanente, alors que tel n'était pas le cas pour l'étranger qui épouse une Mauricienne. L'étranger ne devient pas automatiquement résident mauricien. Et cette situation était une discrimination flagrante vis-à-vis de la Mauricienne. Le MMM a donc combattu cette discrimination. Madame Zifra, alors figure de proue du MMM, et un groupe de femmes avaient ainsi constitué un front pour présenter au Comité des droits humains à Genève une plainte contre cette législation discriminatoire, à savoir the Immigration Act and the Deportation Act de 1970. Et elles ont gagné leur cause. C'était le début d'un changement et d'une nouvelle ère pour les femmes de ce pays. Et aujourd'hui, grâce au MMM, en vertu de l'article 5.1c de la loi sur l'immigration, un non-citoyen qui épouse une citoyenne de Maurice obtient automatiquement le statut de résident. Les présentes dispositions prévoient 2 ans pour obtenir un permis de résidence permanente après le mariage entre a citizen and a non-citizen. C'est une épée de Damoclès sur la tête de ceux et celles concernés. Attendre 2 ans pour un permis de résident, c'est l'incertitude. Cette situation risque de causer des ruptures de couple et un traumatisme aux enfants qui sont entre-temps issus de ce mariage. Ce nouveau projet de loi est un recul et une mauvaise évolution sur le plan législatif depuis 1983. La loi n'est pas statique, certes, mais elle se doit d'évoluer dans la bonne direction. L'État devrait être prudent quand il s'agit des familles et surtout quand il y a des enfants. Même si l'enfant et les parents sont réunis éventuellement, les effets de cette politique de séparation des familles sont durables. Le traumatisme de cette séparation aura un impact dévastateur. On se souviendra qu'en 2019, ce gouvernement est venu avec des amendements à la Immigration Amendment Act. Il y a eu des dénonciations de la manière de faire du gouvernement. Ce dernier refusait l'autorisation à M. Patrick Hoffman, citoyen belge, alors pilote d'Air Mauritius, de convoler en juste noces avec une Mauricienne. Dans son intervention sur le projet d'amendement 2019, l'actuel ministre des Affaires étrangères, alors sur le banc de l'opposition, brandissait une lettre adressée à M. Hoffman par le PMO, laquelle lettre se lisait comme suit. As a non-citizen of Mauritius, you are trying to marry a citizen of Mauritius for the sole purpose to automatically acquire the status of resident. Et le député de commenter cette décision dans ce sens. Je cite. Est-ce que la raison a été l'absence à son poste de travail et sa décision de ne pas piloter un vol? Il avait produit un certificat médical à son employeur. Mais cette décision, que nous le voulions ou non, semble être une sanction et non une décision administrative. Je veux dire la décision de lui refuser la possibilité de se marier à Maurice. Fin de citation. Et le même député pose la question suivante au Premier ministre. Je cite. Est-ce que cette demande d'autorisation pour son mariage civil n'était pas un moyen déguisé d'empêcher M. Hoffman la possibilité d'acquérir la nationalité mauricienne? Fin de citation. La population se souvient également du cas de la Sri Lankaise, Madame Medagama, expulsée du pays alors qu'elle était enceinte de 8 mois et était sur le point d'accoucher, alors même qu'il y avait une injonction intérimaire du juge Annie. Cette expulsion et les critiques du Premier ministre d'alors provoquent la démission du juge. On ne sait pas ce qui est advenu de l'enfant, s'il a pu être réunifié avec son géniteur. Les dispositions de ce projet de loi vont à l'encontre des conventions internationales et régionales auxquelles nous sommes signataires. The UN Charter, the African Charter for Human Rights and the Rights of the People, the African Charter on the Rights of the Child, et va à l'encontre même de l'article 15.1 de notre Constitution qui se lit comme suit. No person shall be deprived of his freedom of movement, and for the purposes of this section, that freedom means the right to move freely throughout Mauritius, the right to reside in any part of Mauritius, the right to enter Mauritius, the right to leave Mauritius, and immunity from expulsion from Mauritius. L'esprit de ce projet de loi est également contraire au principe de best interest of the child de notre Children's Act. Et dans chacun de ces traités, l'arbitraire est la pierre de touche, le touchstone, de ce qui est considéré comme une ingérence illégale dans la famille. Il est un fait que les mariages impliquant des citoyens d'un pays et un non-citoyen sont de plus en plus courants aujourd'hui. Il est un fait également qu'il existe des faux mariages, des mariages blancs ou des mariages de convenance. Il existe déjà des provisions légales à de telles situations. Si le mariage n'a pas marché et il y a eu divorce, le citoyen étranger est déporté 6 mois après que le divorce ait été prononcé. La loi est claire. La section 6.2 de the Immigration Amendment Act stipule « Where a person has acquired his status of resident, he shall cease, subject to subsection 6 of this section, to be a resident 6 months after the termination of the marriage to the citizen. » Il y a en effet des cas où des individus contractent des mariages de convenance afin de faciliter l'entrée et le séjour d'étrangers à Maurice. Ce problème a toujours existé et continuera d'exister. Mais est-ce que l'on connaît les statistiques relatives? Est-ce qu'il y a eu une recrudescence de cas où les non-citoyens ont utilisé le mariage comme seul but d'obtenir un permis de résidence permanent? Sur quoi se base-t-on pour affirmer qu'il y a abus? Si abus il y a, il faut s'attaquer au problème en amont. Aujourd'hui, les informations sur une personne sont facilement accessibles. From a click of the mouse, on peut avoir toutes les informations que l'on recherche sur une personne. On peut le faire à travers un certificat de moralité issu de son pays d'origine, à travers Interpol, à travers les services de l'ambassade. La communication est tellement facile et les informations accessibles très rapidement. C'est pourquoi tout le monde a été surpris que dans le cas du Slovaque Ulricek, en réponse à une question parlementaire, le Premier ministre avait répondu que le gouvernement avait vérifié les informations sur cette personne notoire, mais rien n'a été trouvé. Il a fallu que les autorités slovaques elles-mêmes adressent une communication au gouvernement mauricien. Et c'est à partir de là que le gouvernement a su que cette personne était recherchée dans son pays, alors qu'il suffisait de s'enquérir auprès des autorités slovaques. Si les autorités dites compétentes à Maurice avaient la volonté nécessaire, les informations requises auraient facilement pu être obtenues. L'article 36 du projet de loi définit un mariage de convenance. Marriage of convenience means a marriage between a non-citizen and a citizen, orchestrated for the sole purpose of the non-citizen obtaining a residence permit. Il incombera à un département de l'immigration de mener une enquête pour déterminer si le mariage entre un non-citizen et un citizen est un mariage de convenance. S'il est établi à la satisfaction du département de l'immigration que le mariage n'est pas un mariage de complaisance, le non-citoyen obtiendra un permis de séjour. Mais comment prouver si le mariage est un mariage de convenance? Difficile à prouver. Quel est le knowledge ou l'expertise du département de l'immigration pour déterminer si un mariage est un mariage de convenance? Est-ce qu'un directeur de l'immigration a les connaissances et l'expertise ou l'habilité nécessaires pour déterminer si un mariage est un mariage de convenance? Là aussi, on sent l'abus. Le directeur de l'immigration ne sera-t-il pas que le rubber stamp du Premier ministre? Pourquoi ne pas instituer un board, un panel d'experts, un independent and impartial body pour déterminer s'il y a mariage de convenance ou pas? Et le burden of proof devra être sur ce département, sur ce independent and impartial body. Dans l'affaire opposant Sadowska et le secrétaire d'État au département, la Cour suprême au Royaume-Uni en 2017 confirme que the burden of proof incombe au ministère de l'Intérieur de prouver l'existence d'un mariage de convenance. The standard of proof is the balance of probabilities. Ce projet de loi, pour terminer, ce projet de loi est un recul et n'aura pour résultat que des ruptures de mariage bona fide, des éclatements de famille et le chamboulement dans la vie des enfants. Le gouvernement se doit de revoir sa copie. Un tel projet aurait dû être circulé et permettre à la population d'en débattre. De toute façon, il n'y a aucune urgence, à moins qu'il y ait agenda caché. Trop de pouvoirs ne peuvent être octroyés à une seule personne. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. J'en ai terminé. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to start my intervention by commending the Honourable Prime Minister for coming up with a present bill, that is the Immigration Bill, which in my opinion is a very progressive piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Immigration Act of 1970 has been amended not less than 25 times in 52 years. And this is a clear indication of how dynamic migration in Mauritius is, in fact, as it is throughout the world. As the world is becoming a global village, migration is becoming a salient feature of a more interconnected world. While encouraging mobility, it is equally important to have the proper legal framework to ensure a holistic approach in securing safe and orderly practices, which will ultimately be beneficial for all in building resilience of individuals and communities. The immigration bill is a prerequisite for Mauritius in protecting our borders from the illegal movement of people and de facto from drugs and contraband, while at the same time promoting lawful entry and exit, which is essential to our country's security, economic prosperity, and territorial sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am proud that this bill is being brought to the House by this government and by no other than the Prime Minister himself, Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnnath, who, I will remind the House, is responsible for our Republic's national security and territorial integrity portfolios. Mr. Speaker, sir, the early growth and the historical development of the Mauritian population was in fact characterized by immigration. Mauritius does not have an indigenous population, and we are mainly descendants of Indian indentured laborers, Chinese traders, and African slaves. Even back then, there was the need to promote, to protect, and to plan for the safe growth of the population, and this already brings a preamble to the immigration bill being debated today in this House. Mr. Speaker, sir, the immigration bill has the primary objective of consolidating and strengthening the law with regard to the admission and the stay of non-citizens in Mauritius. The major benefit of this new bill would be the harmonization of other acts, such as the Deportation Act, the Economic Development Board Act, the Non-Citizens Employment Restriction Act, the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act, and the Passports Act. Excuse me. The starting point when we talk about immigration is that in order for a non-citizen to enter Mauritius, he must have the correct authorization. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are several types of permits in Mauritius, included but not limited to residence permit, permanent residence permit, occupation permit, family occupation permit, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill identifies the key challenges of migration today. It brings stability and security to the country. Contractual migrant workers are playing a crucial role in our economy, more particularly in the manufacturing, construction, and tourism sectors. One should remember that it is not necessarily due to a shortage of skilled Mauritian workers, but because of the increase in the standard of living of our country, and this makes Mauritius a desirable and an attractive place to live and work. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, increasingly, investors are bringing in foreign labor. Their expertise, skills, and efficiency at work are an essential value for the economy of our island in achieving our growth target. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius, through this government, together with the Economic Development Board and other key stakeholders, has been developing planned and well-managed immigration programs with a number of friendly countries. One such program happens to be with the government of Quebec in Canada, which was initiated in 2019. Furthermore, several memoranda of understanding have been signed with countries such as the United Arab Emirates, the Republic of Seychelles, the Nepal, the State of Qatar, the People's Republic of China, and so on. Such agreements ensure that all the rights of migrant workers are respected right from the recruitment stage throughout their stay and until their return to their home country. Mr. Speaker, sir, Honorable Boulel stated in his intervention, he voiced out his qualms and concerns about marriages of convenience or sham marriages. This bill, as compared to the one of 1970, this bill caters for new provisions to precisely prevent such situations where a non-citizen marries a citizen for the sole purpose of obtaining a residence permit in Mauritius. I am certain that Honorable Boulel is very well aware that in the past we have had situations where non-citizens tried to curtail the law and abuse the system for the sole purpose of acquiring the status of a resident by contracting such fake marriages. In many cases, Some of these non-citizens at the time of contracting a marriage in Mauritius were already married in their country of origin. Some contracted a marriage in Mauritius, then divorced within 1 or 2 years, and then moved into another marital relationship within 6 months, only to enable them to continue to stay in Mauritius. These people, Mr. Speaker, sir, got married with one intention only, and that is to secure a Mauritian citizenship. Even worse, Mr. Speaker, sir, quite often after obtaining this permit, the citizenship permit, these people ultimately file for a divorce and leave their Mauritian spouse to marry somebody from their own country of origin. And this bill is here to put a final end to such vicious circles. Mr. Speaker, sir, what is regrettable is that many young women fall victim of such crooked and ill-intentioned individuals. To avoid these unfortunate situations, it is therefore provided in the immigration bill that a non-citizen spouse will not outright be eligible for a residence permit. The marriage between a non-citizen and a citizen will have to be a civil marriage, and the non-citizen spouse will in lieu obtain a temporary residence permit to stay in Mauritius for a period of 2 years, and after that period, that non-citizen spouse will be eligible to apply for a residence permit. I do agree, Mr. Speaker, sir, with Honourable Boulel, who pointed out that sham marriages are quite different from broken marriages, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, capacity building of stakeholders who are involved in the immigration process, capacity building of those stakeholders is of extreme importance. As a key authority, the Immigration Department will be further empowered to investigate into whether the marriage between a non-citizen and a Mauritian citizen is that of convenience, and if it is established to the satisfaction of the Immigration Department that the marriage is not one of convenience, then the non-citizens will obtain a residence permit. Allow me to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this bill will enable relevant authorities to conduct appropriate checks on a non-citizen. The Civil Status Act is being amended to further provide that a marriage between a non-citizen and a citizen will now be celebrated in Mauritius after 30 days of the publication of the marriage instead of the current 10 days. It will also serve as a landmark in the region when it comes to immigration. Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I will address a concern raised by Honourable Utim during his intervention. Our law, Mr. Speaker, sir, through the Protection from Domestic Violence Act, provides the legal basis for the protection of migrants who are victims of domestic violence. My ministry further provides children who are victims of trafficking or violence with immediate and long-term protective and support services through the Child Protection Services Unit of my ministry. Besides the child development units outstations across the island, there are dropping centres at Port Louis, and the residential care at Grande Rivière North West also provides protective and support services to children victims of trafficking. To allay the fears of both Honourable Utim and Honourable Navo-Marie with regards to the best interests of the child, I wish to reassure the House that, of course, the best interest of the child is paramount according to the Section 4 of the Children's Act. But in the spirit of the laws, we shall not allow any person, irrespective of being a Mauritian, a citizen, a foreigner, to use our children as a shield to flout other existing legislations. The immigration bill is not being brought with the objective to discriminate, to expel, or to deprive people of their citizenship for frivolous reasons. It is here to regulate and ensure safe practices. This bill is being brought to ascertain that no one abuses the law to disrupt the social political landscape of our island, a landscape which we all, well, probably not us all, but at least the real patriots, we all cherish this socio-political landscape will look and will work towards safeguarding this landscape. Honourable Navarre-Marie mentioned Mr. Hoffman in her intervention. I would very kindly ask the member to revisit the intentions of that individual. And they were not very good, and they were not good intentions at all. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a Minister of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, I note with satisfaction that under this bill, children of non-citizens who hold a valid work and residence permit will still have access to all levels of education under the same conditions as our Mauritian citizens. And for permanent residents and their spouses who hold an occupation or a work permit, they will have access to our labour market, thus promoting gender equality and equal treatment for all. Mr. Speaker, sir, the history of human migration has made Mauritius ethnically diverse, as we are all aware. On one hand, we have the reality of an aging population, and on the other hand, we have a wider spectrum of economic pillars. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we cannot exclude the contribution of migrants in the equation of our economic development. This bill is, in this context, simplifying the current legislation in a clear, in a precise and straightforward manner. Mr. Speaker, sir, concerns have been raised with regards to the powers of the Prime Minister to deprive a person of a Mauritian citizenship. This power, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not an absolute one. Such a power and discretion will be used only if the Prime Minister has reasonable grounds to believe that it is in the best interest of defence, of public safety, of public order, public morality, or public health to do so. Mr. Speaker, sir, in practice, this means that based on the information that will be provided to the Prime Minister by competent authorities, the Prime Minister, who I remind the House very humbly, is also the Minister of Defence, of Home Affairs and External Communications, is also the Minister for Rodrigues, Outer Island and Territorial Integrity. He will have the legal right to take a specific and a well-informed action at the right moment and always in the best interests of our Republic. This is the evidentiary threshold under the Immigration Bill, and therefore it would be wrong to allude that such a power is absolute and will be applied upon baseless grounds, Mr. Speaker, sir. To conclude, allow me to once again congratulate the Honourable Prime Minister for his farsightedness and for taking the bold initiative in bringing a piece of legislation that propels our country closer to international standards and fulfilling migrants' rights, while at the same time protecting our citizens, in particular our children, our young girls and women, by preventing malicious, ill-intentioned foreigners from taking advantage of our citizens and preventing abuse of our immigration framework. This government, our Prime Minister, has a primary mandate to protect our territory and our citizens. Long live the Republic of Mauritius. I thank you all for your attention.
Honourable members, I suspend the sitting for 30 minutes.